Thanks so much for joining us today. Before we start, quick housekeeping request. If you could put yourselves on mute, please. Thank you. So thanks so much for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to host you this afternoon. And I'm looking forward to a stimulating discussion as always when we have these topics to talk about. And today is very interesting. So my name is Jessie Paul. I'm the CEO of Paul Writer, and we do try to create opportunities for profitable conversations. And we want to keep this really interactive. So if you have any questions at all, you can just post them in the chat window, and the speakers and others can contribute their answers to that as we go along. So you can also keep yourself on mute as well as your video on mute as well today. Unless you're the presenter. So we do have a recording of this, and we will be sharing that with all the participants, so you don't have to keep snapshots and so on of that. So with that, I would like to do a quick intro on the topic and our experts for today. And the topic, of course, is of interest to everyone. It's retraining to beat the bots and how to upskill your workforce. So I think we're all pretty much in agreement that the roles will change. So it is quite possible that a particular element of what you do or a particular role could be automated, but that does not mean that the person has to be replaced. You will have newer roles coming up, newer opportunities coming up, and the role of HR really is to figure out a way in which we can find a path for people to migrate to these newer roles. And of course, the people also want to go on those newer roles. I mean, the two have to be in there. But it's actually a large challenge for the workforce today as to how do we keep pace with change? How do we keep the skills relevant to tomorrow? And so for that, we have two experts with us today. We have Dr. Vishnupriya Raghavan, who's the head of programs for Manipal ProLearn, and Alka Rai Sharma, who's a senior manager L&D for Flipkart. And both are on two sides of a coin. So Manipal ProLearn is in the business of continuous education and interventions as well for corporates to continue the learning journey. And of course, Flipkart is a huge and dynamic and ever-evolving organization with a lot of quick change. And how do they adapt to that? How do they enable their teams to adapt to that? Definitely has a lot of interesting insights as well. So with that, I'm going to hand over the floor to Dr. Priya. So over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jessie. I am going to share my screen now.
Perfect. We're very happy to have you today.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining, and thanks, Jessie, for the opportunity. So this quick 20-minute session from me, and then followed by, I think, Alka. So we're going to quickly talk about retraining to beat the bots, how you should upskill your workforce. So we're going to discuss about, yes, upskilling, reskilling. We have to be on the track to ensure that our skills do not become obsolete. But then how do we actually do it, and how organizations have to build the culture of learning? With bots coming in and with AI causing this revolution, and also to most importantly understand how AI is going to empower our workforce in the near future instead of replacing it. So with that, I'm sure the reports that robots, automation, AI are going to put millions of us out of work may sound very troubling, but should we believe them? Yes, we do see news articles, and then we read it quite often. We hear it on TV. We keep seeing algorithms dictate the automated trading of trillions of dollars worth of assets in the financial markets. Artificially intelligent chatbots are taking over humans in call centers. And well, before we dive too far into the future implications of AI, just a quick peek into all of these buzzword-filled headlines that grabbed our attention over the past year. Google's AlphaGo defeats Chinese Go master in win for AI. I mean, this was a major accomplishment for DeepMind, Google AI's research arm. While AI has defeated chess grandmasters in the past, Go was considered a much more complicated game. So the victory was a monumental moment in the AI world. Facebook chatbots decided English was inefficient. Facebook built 2 conversational chatbots, taught them to negotiate, and the results were absolutely fascinating. The bots were designed to talk to each other, to better learn negotiation strategies. And in the meantime, they created their own non-human language for negotiation. And the list is pretty much endless. So, I mean, for centuries now, humans have been fretting over technological unemployment or the loss of jobs caused by technological change. And this has been there even ever since even the ERP era or the dot-com era. I go back to my 1997 days, and this was still the talk. And when all our Indian banks moved on to the core banking system, again, there was so much of fear about so many jobs being lost. But never has this sentiment been accentuated more than it is today, because we are at the cusp of the next industrial revolution. So with developments in AI continuing at a chaotic pace, fears of robots ultimately replacing humans are definitely increasing. However, I want to, just make this point. Yes, while AI continues to master an increasing number of tasks, it is also true, as a lot of these research reports indicate, that we are still decades away from human jobs going extinct. It is just that with AI finding its way into more and more domains, the demand for tech talent is indeed growing. The job content is going to be changing. So at the cusp of the next industrial revolution, if you actually go back to the early 19th century, when Ford came out with their first T-model car, yes, it did symbolize the death knell for the horse-drawn economy. I mean, the rival saddlery businesses that made the saddlers who were making a lot of these things for the horse-drawn carriages saw the lie of the land, turned to making leather footballs, handbags, and luggage instead. The saddlers carried on regardless, eventually went out of business. In a nutshell, this is the challenge we face when new technologies come along. Hey, I'm here, right? Adapt or die. But it is the pace of technological change that is unprecedented in the modern era, which poses the greatest challenge for jobs, and that is a reality. From bots to making changes in financial markets and fintech, going to be changing a lot of things for the BPM in the backend, robotics, process automation. I mean, it does remove the need for the staff to do boring, repetitive, rules-based activities. It could be data entry, it could be handling payroll, it could be a lot of these things, right? Yes, but will AI replace humans? AI is about enabling machines to augment humans at this point in time. So in other words, to complement human skills is all about this webinar. Rather than merely replacing them, in most cases, AI skills are different than humans. So we are actually moving forward towards a symbiosis of the two. So it's more important for organizations to realize this. There's going to be a lot of jobs that is going to be coming up. We may need to switch occupational categories. It could be digitization, automation, advances in artificial intelligence. And these kind of skills companies require will shift, I'm sure, with profound implications for the career paths individuals need to pursue. So it is for organizations, for all of us, to need to get this balance of strengths right from the start, so that we design business processes that make the best use of both resources, to empower our employees, for all of us to get empowered to work smarter and with more productivity. I mean, if you look at a lot of these reskilling initiatives in the recent past, from AT&T to Google to Amazon, I think a lot of this has been on the news. I mean, AT&T's massive global retraining program, the company prefers to call it as reskilling for AI, is called as the Future Ready. The initiative is apparently a 1 billion web-based multi-year effort, includes online courses, collaborations with Coursera, Udacity, leading universities, right? And they have a career center that allows employees to identify and train. They have online portals. I mean, AT&T's is one of the massive ones that is there, and Amazon's Career Choice is not too far behind. Organizations that are ready to pay up to 95% of tuition fees and textbooks, certificates for all kinds of degrees for the employees to take up courses in digitization, automation, robotics, process automation, and all of this in the wake of AI. So reskilling is now completely becoming a no-brainer, right? Now, with all of this, where do organizations have to get this right balance of strengths, right? I mean, if you look at United States Postal Service, for example, it has been a good example of using AI in the right way. It has been modernizing mail sorting for about decades now. And what we hear is they have automated almost 99% of the processes. The US Postal Service is using technology that lets artificial intelligence to weigh, to collect, price all the mails, while post office warehouses, in the Netherlands are relying on guided vehicles and robotics to move parcels. So, but however, there are still human beings that are necessary. So the human in the loop concept demonstrates very clearly that intelligent systems can go only so far in automating some processes. At the same time, it enhances training data every time it is used. So whether it is a United States parcel service to all of these bots doing deliveries, whether it is in supply chain, logistics, BPM, if a human corrects a problem, the machine learns from that correction in a way that it wouldn't be able to do without human input. So this means the overall model is only getting more and more intelligent with every iteration, and the process gets more and more effective. So it is this iterative process of active learning is making these machine learning models better. And this is what Gartner calls the new kinds of roles that are going to be emerging in the near future. Accenture calls this. There are also a lot of reports. Accenture, in fact, says they have identified new types of employment in the future of work. It says trainers, explainers, and sustainers. In fact, this is a very, very interesting article that I would urge as many of you, those of you who are interested, to go and read this article. MIT Sloan Management Review published this with Accenture team. And this clearly says there are going to be new kinds of roles that are going to be emanating in the near future. It says, I mean, trainers who are going to be allowing or explaining to the AIs how they should perform, because as of today, bots do not understand sarcasm. They don't understand frustration on social media. So what do people say? What do people talk about? There are going to be trainers who have to make these bots get trained on a lot of these things and teaching them the complexity of our language, instilling empathy in them. And then we have explainers, and then we have sustainers. In fact, the report says there is going to be a lot of ethics that is going to be involved in AI-related activities, that there's going to be a whole new stream of ethics coming into play, ethics, legal, and a variety of these jobs. And explainers who have to set the context, make decisions based on the business context because of cultural factors. Things could change from country to country. So I'm just wanted to introduce this concept to you in the webinar so that all of you can go back and read this article by MIT Sloan Management Review available on Google. Could read more about it to see, hey, where do I fit in? What is my area of interest that I can go pick up and I can go reskill or upskill myself? And I think this article is a beautiful article that talks about the new kinds of umbrella roles that are going to come in the wake of AI. So are we prepared for an AI-driven organization? I mean, we are doing a lot of reskilling initiatives. I'm sure all organizations are getting into this. But the most important point to remember is the most significant impact of AI is not going to be on the number of jobs, but rather on job content. Yes, jobs may reduce, but the repetitive jobs are going to be reducing. But there is still going to be a lot of new kind of jobs that are going to emerge that will need plurality of skills. So the point is, there is definitely a call on all of us to focus on upskilling. There is an evolution of work. The type of work we do will change. Bots doesn't have to necessarily lead to a culling of staff, but it can empower them. It can help us unleash our creativity. It will free us up from doing a lot of unproductive stuff. Low-skill jobs may disappear. People will need to learn new skills to compensate. And all of this, to me, points out to one definitely important thing is the urgent need for education reform. People definitely need to learn design thinking. There's going to be a lot of focus on creativity, analytics, programming. The point is, I mean, we spoke briefly about the Ford T model and the saddlers getting away. I mean, just the job getting obsolete. So the point is, let us not carry on making saddles when the car is driving down the streets towards you and me. So the point is to reimagine the new work environment, reimagine the new content, reskill, continue to refresh and redeploy ourselves. So a lot of these skills are going to be needed in addition to the hardcore technical skills. And for this, it is very important for organizations to build that culture of learning. And if you ask me from my experience in education, what are we actually doing? As Jesse introduced, yes, we are offering a lot of programs in AI. But then the real pain point is for a lot of organizations is they sign up with a lot of us, a lot of online courses as well with Coursera, Udacity, Lynda, there are plenty out there. But the point is, are people really reskilling themselves, upskilling themselves using a lot of these online programs? And that is where actually we make a difference. We kind of focus on blended learning programs because we kind of hold on to the learner so that they don't drift away. Because that is really what is happening in online programs. As much as there are enrollments into these programs, there is also an equal amount of dropouts from these programs. So, I mean, if you ask me from my experience, I am really looking forward for AI reforming the field of education. I'm really waiting for AI. It has already started. It is about to disrupt the field of higher education because I'm thrilled when I hear news about an Oregon State University that already uses adaptive learning technologies. I mean, while all of us must have learned enough, heard enough about personalized learning, I mean, even Amazon makes personalized shopping choices for you and me. And a lot of these other education portals, online learning portals, make personalized learning choices. But how about adaptive learning? If I know, I mean, I was at doing a Coursera a program some time back. I mean, Manipal, we tied up with Coursera. And then we also have a lot of online programs. I was doing an advanced data analytics program. And after the 5th video, I was actually getting stuck at one point of, I'm doing an advanced data sciences program. And then it talks about an eigenvalue, eigenvector. And then I'm like, hey, this is something that I read in my 10th grade. So what is it? Why do I have to now go back and learn an eigenvector? I'm unable to proceed to the 11th video. I need to stop there, and there has been a 2-week break, and I need to go back and refresh my mathematics, my matrices and determinants in order to go to the next video, right? And the thing is, AI, if AI could have been here, it could have told me, it could have given me that snippet of information so that I have not lost that 2-3 weeks of time. If somebody could have said, oh, Vishnupriya is getting stuck in this particular module, in this particular video, because she has to go back and refresh her memory in these mathematical concepts, right? Whether a person could need a one-on-one tutoring at that point, or a person is probably not preferring a quiz type of question, the person is preferring a different kind of assessment, or a person needs a little bit more coaching on a particular concept. I think if that can come in AI in the field of education, I think that will help all of us organizations to really understand how to push a lot of these reskilling programs towards completion. On one hand, there is no dearth of courses for programs for all of us to learn. There are so many programs that we can actually pick and choose from. But the point is, how many programs adapt to our learning style? Do we all even know our learning style? How many of us are visual learners? How many of us are kinesthetic learners? Depending upon the learning style, can a suitable training program be given to us? So when I hear Oregon State University is already using adaptive learning technology to personalize a lot of their hardest courses, they've seen which are the hardest courses that students fail, which are the modules that face a lot of attrition. They've already put in a lot of adaptive learning technologies. Northern Arizona, for example, they have begun to implement the method of university-wide, the adaptive learning mechanisms, and they have already seen failure rates coming down from 23 to 19%. Machine learning has already been used to give immediate feedback on students writing assignments, and you're able to pick up the strengths and help education, then completing courses and reskilling and upskill is today. I mean, from disseminating, breaking down textbook content to intelligent tutoring systems, simulations, augmented reality, virtual reality, self-assessments. A lot of these things can help a lot of us learners to go to the next level of learning and towards completion. But the most important thing is, while all of this can help, and we constantly look forward to make use of these revolutions in our own domains and industries wherever we belong to, the most important thing as leaders, as employees, it's very important to make that connect between employer perceptions and learners' actual willingness. It's very important to listen and learn, develop a better understanding of individuals' worker expectations and aspirations, tailor training programs to address the differences in motivation and skill levels, invest in awareness programs to prepare people to work with intelligent technologies. And the most important thing is to measure the impact, to assess which training methods work for which segments, and measure employee interest and the engagement, as well as the effectiveness of the various training methods, and definitely do a lot of role modeling, because this is what is going to help foster a new leadership DNA. We should develop leaders at all levels where the actual work occurs, empower employees to exercise autonomy, make decisions, and for which we all need to become role model ourselves in upskilling, reskilling, and showing the next generation also to do the same. So it's extremely important that we definitely get ready for a robot-only future. But contrary to popular belief, it's very important to note that most AI systems as of today are acting as a complement to humans instead of replacing them. So we are still years away from full automation and artificial intelligence taking away our jobs completely. But eventually there will come a day where robots will perform more tasks, and the role of humans in the production cycle may become marginal. It is today very hard to envision the dynamics of a robot-driven economy. However, as human beings, we have to sustain our lives when robots still takes away all our jobs. AI is going to unfold. Fundamental changes lie ahead. While we cannot predict the future, I would like to say that we can at least prepare for its potential outcome as best as we can. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll give this back to Jessie. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Priya, we have some questions for you, and I thought we just cover them before we move on to the next segment. Sure. So I think I'll take the last question first, because I think that's on a lot of people's minds, which is, when you say upskilling, what skill sets would you recommend for HR and L&D professionals?
HR and L&D professionals, I think a lot of upskilling has to be in terms of analytics to start with. Even HR analytics kind of courses for them to start with, and also to understand a lot of learning methodologies, assessment methodologies, instructional design. So these are some of the programs I would definitely recommend for L&D and HR professionals.
Right. Yeah, maybe Sudipta, you can comment on if that's answered your question. And there's also a question on, how does AI support learning platforms and specific to personalizing the learning experience? I mean, you touched upon that a little.
Yes. I did touch upon that a little, because, of course, there are a lot of startups now that are doing a lot of good work in this space, and a lot of them are probably in prototyping stages. Many of them are just in the funding stages, but then we already know a lot of large universities are already doing it. One is personalized learning. As I said, I get a different basket of courses and Jessie gets a different basket of courses. But having said that, having got our own personalized courses, how do I ensure that Jessie actually completes whatever she has taken up? Because that is the end point of reskilling or upskilling. You've taken something, and that is the biggest pain point for organizations today. A lot of them drop out after enrolling. So which is where AI, I feel, is going to revolutionize education. If we can get adaptive learning. Hey, why is Jessie not proceeding after the 14th module? Or why is she stuck up? Or why is her quiz marks low? Now, can I give her a different kind of assessment? Can I give her a different kind of learning module? Can I send some summary notes on her cell phone while she's driving? Right? So if this can happen, I think a lot of upskilling and reskilling initiatives that look like an ordeal to most of us today will become so much more easier. So I mean, there are a lot of these tools now. I think there is something called as Scrum 101. It uses AI to disseminate and break down textbook content into small study guides. This includes chapter summaries, true or false, and multiple choice questions. Because today, if you actually see, a lot of our teachers, trainers, even people in the L&D space, I mean, they'll agree with me, a lot of their primary work goes on, even our professors at the college level, a lot of their primary work is still going for assessments, proctoring, the invigilation, even in universities, and their secondary work is research. Whereas if you look at Europe, if you look at the UK, you look at the US, professors or a trainer's primary job is to do research, is to do consulting. They don't even have a concept of too much of these proctoring and supplementary examinations and putting up these questions. All these things, AI can do it for us. If AI can free up the trainers and faculty members out of a lot of these jobs, imagine how beautiful education system is going to be reformed. In fact, Carnegie Mellon has started a new software. They have a new software called MIKA, the MIKA software. Apparently, it uses cognitive science and AI technologies to provide personalized tutoring. It gives real-time feedback for secondary education students, particularly incoming college freshmen, because a lot of these folks who are just getting into the universities are totally lost. They don't know what kind of courses they need to take, what kind of courses is too ahead of them. And they end up taking way too many remedial courses, or they enroll in courses and they drop out. So a lot of this cognitive science and AI technologies apparently provide a lot of personalized tutoring and real-time feedback. And I think while we all have, even in Manipal, we also offer a lot of online courses, lynda.com, Coursera. I mean, a lot of these players in the online market, the most important thing for all of us to keep in mind is, hey, how can we use AI to do that AI-injected training, AI-injected education, to ensure that all learners complete the programs that they take, and for which AI could actually revolutionize the education system.
We'll take up one last question and move on to the next session. And it's a very relevant question, which is, the traditional understanding is that if you have skill sets that cannot be automated, you're not operating as per a set script, then harder for your job to get taken by a bot. But what about freshers who in the past traditionally started with being told what to do and operating with a to-do list? So what are the skills that they would require to compete with the bots?
Oh, they would still need, a lot of programming courses are for the freshers, analytics and programmers. As I said, to even train the bot, that is not going to be definitely taken up by people with about 25, 30 years of experience. So a lot of these jobs will definitely be taken up by the freshers. Even to train the bot, to put it in place is going to be, because as more and more jobs are going to get automated, they will still need a lot of these kind of jobs for the freshmen, for the incoming, for the fresh graduates. A lot of these training kind of jobs will definitely go to them. And of course, yes, and it's just not going to be enough. There is in fact, empathy was a very hard skill to measure. But today with AI, I think over a period of time, I think that also could become a measurable skill. So there's going to be a lot of focus on creativity and innovation, critical thinking, problem solving. Decision making is going to be a huge affair. In fact, I would say, with all due respects to our IT industry and all of this, today a sad point is thinking is probably, I would say, is one of the most underrated skills. And that is going to change with AI. If AI is going to be doing all of our repetitive tasks, then we need the fresh guys to come out with fresh ideas and to do a lot of thinking. So there's empathy, creativity, innovation, and decision making, critical thinking, the entrepreneurial thinking, being an entrepreneur inside an organization. So a lot of these things, and being able to manage complexity. Because as I said, with AI, there's going to be a lot more legalities involved in the jobs. There's a lot more ethical issues that are going to be involved. There's a lot more cultural factors. What works in India may not work in the US. What works in the US may not work in Australia, may not work in Jordan. So a lot of these cultural factors are going to come up, and I still, I mean, there's going to be a lot of new kinds of jobs for all these incoming graduates.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. So yeah, thanks so much for that answer. I think that was great. And so the second segment is a different perspective, like we talked about. It's from Alka Rai Sharma, who's a senior manager at L&D Flipkart. And I think Flipkart is an organization where automation, AI, bots are day-to-day words. So it'd be great to hear her perspective on how do you retrain to beat the bots. Over to you, Alka. And thanks, Dr. Priya, and I hope you're on standby for more questions.
Follow, I think. A very warm good afternoon to everyone on the webinar today. I think one of the most commonly used words today, especially in the HR fraternity, the talent management fraternity, and the L&D fraternity, is around AI. Right. And just this morning, I was having a conversation with a couple of leaders here. I think disruption is usually mentioned in the same breath as AI, and there's a very good reason for it. As human beings, we are naturally wired to resist change. Change means adapting. Change means changing the mindset. Change means doing things differently, and possibly out of our comfort zone as well. And I think that is as much a definition of AI as any other. So with that, let's get started for today. What I would like to speak about today is a little bit on how AI is actually already a part of our day-to-day lives. Whether it is traveling to work every day, using a cab aggregator, whether it is in terms of news that we read about driverless cars and how are we there yet, are we not there yet, and all of those debates. How speech recognition today is becoming a very, very comprehensive part of a lot of contact centers in the world, and how that is shaping up customer experience when it comes to organizations like Flipkart and our competitors in the industry today. So AI is already here, and it is definitely shaping up the way we work, the way we live our lives today. As we move on, I think specifically from a talent management and from an HR fraternity, I think there's some very, very interesting insights that I'd like to share, and I have a question for all of you at the end of it as well. So I was reading up a McKinsey study, a recent McKinsey study, which says that possibly, and it's a huge number, right? So 75 million to about 375 million people around the world by the year 2030 will possibly need to change their occupational categories and acquire new skills by 2030, not after 2030, but by then, right? So the reality is that today, the kind of tasks we have, the kind of skills that we hire for, the kind of skills that we come with as part of the HR fraternity and the talent management fraternity, most of our skills are a combination of higher function and some tasks that we are expected to, operational or transactional tasks that we are also expected to be good at. The reality is that today, when it comes to creating efficient organizations, a lot of the organizations are already looking at automating the transactional bits. That's where AI is slowly becoming a part of our day-to-day work as well. I'll give you a couple of examples of recruitment, because this is something where, at least as an industry, you will see e-commerce moving into, particularly because of all the sale events that happen, which require us to hire people at almost somewhere to the count of 50,000 to 60,000 for some of the bigger sale events that we have. So that means that we will definitely need to have some form of an automated understanding, or rather an evaluation of what kind of skills do we quickly want to see. What is the basic benchmark that we are looking for? Imagine if you were hiring 50,000 people, and I don't know if we have any friends from recruitment on this webinar today, but if we had, let's say, around 50,000 people that you're hiring for, and you have maybe a month's time, it's a nightmare to actually screen resumes and then ensure that we have the right fit. How do you set up governance around it? How do you ensure there's no leakage of data, no leakage of information when all of these events are happening. So there are a lot of strides that the industry has already made in terms of AI, and you will see it in various organizations, and probably I can share offline a list of these organizations that are essentially heading the change in the field of recruitment, right? Which help essentially, for example, in things like predicting the likelihood of a candidate joining, the degree of close mapping between a candidate's profile and the job skills needed. Besides that, I know one of my previous organizations that used to use AI-powered bots in HR to address any queries, etc., around HR policies that someone might have, right? Now, that's another reality, isn't it? If you're new to an organization, that experience is essentially defined by some of those early questions that you might have, and you'd want somebody from the organization to answer that, right? Things like, hey, what are the benefits that I have from this organization? How can I possibly ensure that my UAN details in terms of the PF, etc., are aligned? Some of these simple questions may actually end up shaping your overall perspective about the ease of working in that organization. And that's the experience that we are essentially changing for the better using AI-powered bots, right? Another example of that, and just this morning we were having a discussion with another external consultant on learner experience platform, right? Gone are the days when we used to use the learner management system and use that to possibly see what the attendance is, how many people have taken up an online course, and maybe where is my dropout rate, have people given feedback, etc. Today's learner is so well informed that you may find a lot of people are so good at Googling up learning and development, inputs, etc., that our value add as an L&D professional, as an HR professional, or a talent management professional has to come from a much higher function, which means how do we create an immersive experience, right? And some of these platforms actually help you set the baseline. On top of it, if let's say, and I caught some part of what Dr. Priya was already saying in terms of empathy, in terms of creative problem solving, using those sort of skills to further streamline the experience for our employees, I think that's going to be the distinguishing factor for organizations tomorrow, right? Before we go ahead, and while some of you might have already heard what Dr. Priya said and what I just said, in your current domain, are there any specific skills that you think are going to be difficult to automate? Let's hear some answers.
People are on mute, but they can chat. So there's one which says managing people.
Fantastic.
I think then blue collar jobs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Difficult to automate?
Yeah, that's what's been put in here.
Okay, okay.
Dr. Priya talked about empathy being very difficult to automate as well.
Yeah, I think we're in sync on that. Sure. So let's talk about what are some of those skills that are going to be called the skills of the future. And I'm sure in some way or the other, all of you would have come across some of these skills being spoken about in various forums. Problem solving, obviously, and more than problem solving, identifying problems which essentially are causing, let's say, an efficiency gap in your current organizations. That's something that is going to be a great skill to have. AI, how does AI learn? AI learns with the help of data and precedents that gets set up. If, let's say, as an individual, you're able to understand these patterns faster and better and able to make sense of it and derive what problems to solve for, then you're already there, right? Things like critical thinking, creativity, for example, and somebody rightly said people management, right? Things like these are very, very difficult to emulate, particularly because it involves a huge degree of personalization too. Can AI possibly replace these skills? Maybe, but it will take some time. Today, we have some initial forays into these areas, and the understanding is that it will take us some time to maybe kind of bring it up with more finesse, right? Relationship making. In organizations, especially like Flipkart, which are growing at an unprecedented rate today, relationships essentially make or break a lot of things, right? If, let's say, I think that the organization should invest on a project in terms of retaining high potentials, I need to have all my leaders signed up on this, right? That skill is essentially difficult to copy because I may have to use a different strategy with different people, right? Elements like emotional intelligence, skills like negotiation, cognitive flexibility of understanding what kind of a situation would require what kind of a skill set, what kind of an interaction or interpersonal skills, right? So all of these are essentially skills of the future. Now, somebody mentioned blue collar, and I'd love to understand.
Sorry, one quick interruption. Alka, if you could just put your screen on to full screen. There's a request from Anita.
Sure.
And there are a couple of comments as well on what's difficult to automate, which is emotions, and where there are too many patterns and human touches required.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And where people are not so educated. I didn't quite get that, but yeah.
Okay. So
you need to put this on full screen.
Yeah. I've done that. Does this help?
Not changed for us.
Okay, at my end it has.
You just have to go to view and go to Zoom full screen if that's possible.
Yes, so I am running this from PDF and I have kind of put it on full screen.
Yeah, it needs a PDF, that's fine. Okay, this is better. Yeah, full screen mode.
How about
perfect.
this?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh,
yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, so yes, absolutely. Anything to do with emotions, anything that has a lot of patterns. And I'm going to give a very, very cliched example here. Any of us who talk about gut feel or who talk about, hey, I have this inclination, I don't know how to explain it, I don't have a reason for it, but I think this is what's going to happen, right? Now, the truths we told, and while it's always debatable, it could be based in data that we don't have access to at that point cognitively. However, there are certain assumptions and understanding of various situations, decisions, etc., that we incorporate as human beings that I'd possibly count as part of the cognitive flexibility that is
Alka, we can't hear you. Yeah, we're just trying to get in touch with Alka. She's either on mute or she's just dropped off. So just give us 2 minutes. Yeah, folks, we've just been in touch with Alka. She's just connecting back in. Welcome back, Alka. Alka, we can now see your screen, but we still can't hear you. She could just
How about that?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And sorry about that. So I guess I should have dropped off around skills at risk. So I'm going to quickly do that again before moving on. So yes, so the kind of skills that possibly are getting automated, one of which is of course quality, very, very predictably, because the quality involves a lot of pluses and minuses, very, very straightforward. We've done this for example, in some of our contact center areas, we're doing pilots there. Riding or driving, I would be slightly on fence with that, but then this is something where AI is already making a foray, right? We do have driverless cars, but we also have examples of driverless cars crashing. So I guess we have some distance to go there, but figuratively speaking, however, yeah, there are some sort of job roles which are very, very task-oriented and do not require a higher cognitive function, which are getting automated as we speak, and chances are will continue to possibly completely become automated in the near future, right? Now, coming to one of the last things that I want to leave you guys with, more often than not, when people speak about AI, they say, hey, AI is here to replace jobs. I wouldn't say that statement is wrong, but it's not complete. The complete statement would be that, yes, AI is here to replace jobs that can be automated. However, that also means that we become more skilled, or rather differently skilled, right? And to do that, there are a couple of things which are extremely essential. One would be the right mindset, right? Currently, if let's say I've been in the field of L&D for about 14 years almost. If I were to be asked, hey, would you be comfortable getting into media? Chances are I would be taken aback, and I don't know if I would be, right? One is getting comfortable with change, therefore. The mindset of saying, hey, okay, I will try this out and let's see what the future holds. Not necessarily into media, but yeah, maybe talent management. Maybe there's something more strategic that I can add value to, right? And moving from strategic to point number 2, having a very clear understanding of what the strategy is. Today, if you look at it, we are somewhere, we've just started the journey with AI becoming more and more topic of hot discussion in various industries, right? Some of the organizations that are riding the AI wave or the digitization wave very well are the ones which are currently not doing away with human capital investment, but combining it with AI investment as well, and very, very strategically. So, and this trend is something that you will see more and more organizations that make those forays and make those advancements in their respective areas are the ones which make use of AI, use it to their own advantage as opposed to using it to replace human capital, right? And the third important thing would be in terms of governance. If you think about AI, one of the things AI learns from is obviously patterns and data, right? Is data completely bias-free? Chances are not all of it is bias-free, right? So having a good governance system in terms of what kind of value would you want AI to have for individuals, to your own organizations, or for your own personal self, it would be good to have a lens of governance around it as well. What I mean by that is that have checks and balances in place, at least for the near future, right? Chances are, as we decide to and become more comfortable with getting differently skilled, AI will also see a lot of advancements, right? And we will continue to grow in that sphere as well. Yeah. So 3 things that will definitely help us in terms of prepping for the future: the right mindset to get comfortable with change. Second, having an understanding of what our strategy is, what kind of a combination of AI advancements, AI-based technologies, as well as human capital investments do we want to go ahead with. And then the third and of course, one of the very important things would be what kind of governance do we have in place to ensure that AI is working to our advantage and not in terms of replacing jobs. Yeah, and it has more of a strategic role than that. So those were some thoughts that I wanted to share with all of you. I'll take a pause here for any questions that you guys might have.
Thanks so much, Alka. That was very, very interesting. And just had one question that was here. It's actually from the beginning part, which is, Prasanna's question from the earlier segment, which I thought you could also kind of answer and segue to that as well. So one is, what are the skills required by freshers? What would you recommend? The second is, from an L&D professional's perspective, what would be like, the basic skills and then the evolved skills that need to be acquired, like a two-phase journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me start off with the second question first, right? I remember when I was starting off my L&D journey, we'd do a lot of communication skills training. And at that point in time, it was the most used and abused term, because anything under the sun, right from attitude issues to attitude adjustment issues to language mishaps to actual communication skills used to be a bit of a problem, and everything would get clubbed under communication skills. Now, while there are elements like language which are getting fairly automated, things like interpersonal skills, I think, would be a baseline, which I would recommend for everyone. Working well with people and the kind of flatness that we see in organizations today, I think requires us to be very, very good in terms of working with people. When sharing information with them, when sharing data patterns, database understanding, etc., that's something that AI and machine learning, etc., can possibly help us with. A more evolved version of interpersonal skills possibly can be where maybe emotional intelligence as a leadership skill, and helping your leaders develop that emotional intelligence, right? Developing that emotional intelligence for yourself, right? So I would think that that's the gradual progression, and most of these skills of future that we've spoken about they do have a baseline version, which I think is very, very apt for freshers to pick up. As you're gaining experience, play very, very close attention to how your organization is sort of giving maybe a weighted distribution to some of these skills. What are the skills that are very, very important in that environment, and how is it that you can pick these up?
Thanks. There are some questions coming in as well. AI itself may change the way that we do repetitive jobs, but AI and automation together, do you feel it would impact mid-level or even high-level jobs?
Sure. I think not. It would impact jobs definitely. The way we work is going to change. And I'm going to make a statement that I think this is what's going to happen. AI may actually end up making us more humane as leaders and as managers leading people. The reason being that today, I think one thing that possibly is used as a distraction strategy by a lot of people who are not very good at leading individuals and organizations is by focusing on the tasks. Does that go away completely in an AI-driven future? Definitely not. But some of it will definitely get automated. What that leaves you time with is focusing on emotional intelligence, higher cognitive functions, to then bring the team together and tie them up for better results, right? That's how I see it playing out, but let's see.
There's a kind of follow-on question saying that, is there a generational gap as well in adoption of AI?
Okay, this is a bit of a pet peeve for me. I think I come from very, very, structured organizations like IBM, Genpact, and the moment I joined Flipkart, this used to be one question that I'd get asked very, very frequently. That, do I feel millennials are like this, and is there a difference? Yes, there is a difference. Maybe there is a generation gap here at play. However, I wouldn't think of it as a limiting factor. I think, AI learns by patterns, and in terms of experience, if you have, let's say, a couple of years, a couple of decades of experience in your kitty, we work in a very, very similar manner. We derive from our experience, we learn from it, and then we grow. The problem is if you stop growing, if you stop upskilling, or if you stop adding new skills to your kitty. That's where the problem happens, and that's where I think the whole debate of there being a generational gap probably plays up a little more than it needs to. So my short answer is, I think, yes, there is a generation gap, but it's not really a deterring factor there.
Okay, that's reassuring to hear. So I'm going to let you go with one last question, which is, does Flipkart actually have like a roadmap for adoption of AI? And is this something that you would recommend leaders to put in place?
Sure. So let me answer it in two parts. One very common, in fact, I'm going to add to your question there, Jessie. One of the very common things that people come up with is that, oh, maybe I should learn coding. Maybe that's the upskilling that I should do from being an HR professional. Now, while I wouldn't say that that's a bad idea, but that's a very, very long road. And if you're keen on doing it for the sake of learning a new skill, sure. Having said that, I think it's important to learn more about AI and ML in the sense that what is the context in which it will get used in our own domains. If, let's say, I'm in L&D, it's important for me to understand how can I use AI to possibly engage better with my learners? Or can I use it to ensure that learning is available at all times of the month and not just when a learning calendar goes out? And how do I ensure that a learner is consistently engaged, right? Having said that, I think from a Flipkart perspective, we definitely use these technologies to a fair degree. It helps us in understanding our customers better. At the same time, we also try and gamify some of this, and I think that's been a big value add. And a lot of organizations, by the way, are going that path today, where they're asking people to explore these technologies to solve real-time business problems, right? I think that's a great way to learn. You can gamify the whole experience, you bring in different perspectives, you bring in the element of competition, and I think everyone involved in that whole process learns at the end of it, right? So that's one way that I think has worked well for us, and I see a lot of other organizations doing this too.
Okay, thanks so much, Alka and Dr. Priya. I think we've had a very, very stimulating session today, and I'd love to thank the participants as well. Very engaging and curious audience, we should say. So thanks again for a very lively afternoon, and we do hope to welcome you again for the next webinar that we have in association with Manipal ProLearn for the win. Thanks again, and have a great evening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. Anji. Anji. Anji.